This is TWiT.
Now, I want to introduce our guest, old friend, dear friend. In fact, we were just reminiscing about the first time we met, which I think goes back to Tech TV days, more than 25 years ago. I checked, and he's been on TWiT a number of times because he's a very interesting fellow. He's done so many interesting things. Paris studied his work in school, apparently. One of the first Bayesian spam filters, pop file.
Yep. That was a collegiate era study.
You might know him from his Geek Atlas, a guidebook we interviewed him for some years ago that has 128, of course, geek locales. He also was instrumental in engineering an apology from the British government to Alan Turing's family for harassing and ultimately causing Alan Turing's death. But more recently, the CTO at one of the best companies on the internet, Cloudflare. Now on the board, he's retired somewhat, CTO emeritus, I guess we'll call you, John Graham-Cumming. Welcome. So great to see you.
Leo. Good to be back. Good to see you.
We have to point out before the show that John, I was saying, John, are you on Tatooine?
Yes, I am. This is actually a photo I took in 2009 of the set of Star Wars in Tunisia, which is really, really near to a little town called Foum Tatooine. So George Lucas literally took the name of the local town for Tatooine.
That's fascinating.
Were there tourists all about, or was this deserted?
Actually, there was almost nobody. I have pictures of just me and one other person wandering around.
That is so cool.
Any graffiti? Any tributes people have left?
I didn't see anything, honestly. At the time, I think it was really a little bit remote and not many people were going. And actually, some parts of the set were being reclaimed by the desert. The desert was literally just moving over it. So
yeah, it looks like it's falling apart, but that was, of course, exactly how Tatooine looked. So I guess it wasn't, you can't tell. We originally wanted to get you on because of a new website. You have a habit of creating websites, I think, right? Like it's just a fun thing for you to do.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just like, I have an idea. The worst case, I'll make a website and nobody will look at it. And then, who cares? But yes.
Leo was so happy when he read your latest post. He was
about low background
believe
steel.
what I just learned. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well.
First of all, what's the genesis of that phrase, low background steel?
Okay, so the idea is that for some nuclear detection situations where they have to have very, very sensitive sensors, you can't have any stray radiation. And in particular, if you have metals that are contaminated with the radioactivity, they cause false readings. And it turns out that most steel in the world is contaminated with radioactivity because we set off a whole load of nuclear bombs in 1945 and beyond, and we contaminated everything because the way steel is made is by pushing air into the steel process, the Bessemer process, and so you end up with this slightly radioactive steel. But there is a bunch of steel that is not radioactive, and that is steel from ships that sunk prior to the Trinity test. Whoa. And so there is actually a business of going and pulling up wrecks from the bottom of the sea and getting the steel out of them because it's sort of purer. So the idea of this low background steel was that there's a defining point at which the world changed, in this case, Trinity test, nuclear weapons, contaminating everything. And we sort of have something similar with AI, which is when ChatGPT launched, there was a sudden explosion of AI-generated content. And it's not really possible in general to know, did a human write this or not? And so I had this idea that uses as a metaphor for, it'd be nice to make a website that was kind of a collection of, we know humans made this. So stuff that was created before the end of 2022, basically.
Why did you choose that date, 2022?
Well, just because that's roughly when the real explosion happened. Once ChatGPT was launched, I mean, you really had this incredible Cambrian explosion, or even Sambrian explosion if you're into
Sambrian
explosion of AI.
Was spam human made, or was there a version of machine made in a more mechanical way?
There's a very good question. So yes, there absolutely were, and in fact, one of the things that happened way back when I was doing spam filtering was a lot of humans tried a lot of tweaks to their messages. and they tried to get through spam filters. And actually, that made it easier to filter them because humans were not very good at filtering the machine.
V1 AI.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
6. Yeah,
Exactly. And it turns out that in some ways, the more the spammers tried to look high, they're doing, the more obvious it was, and actually, it gave even more signal. So it became easier in a funny way. But there was people using essentially the techniques that were used in spam filters to write spams, right, and try and get them through. And I actually, a long time ago, I think in about 2003, did a talk at MIT about this, about how you could take one AI machine learning system and use it instead of another one, which of course people actually do in real life. And you could actually fool the spam filters. So yes, there were things that were done. But for the most part, spammers were pretty, just spray and pray. If someone's got a spam filter, well, too bad. We'll get to the people who haven't got a spam filter.
Actually, it's an interesting question because you wrote Pop File when in
2001.
91.
2001. 2001.
I have to think that spam is not any less prevalent in 2025.
No, the big change, of course, is, if you can remember that far back, Leo, which I can just about remember, is that people were downloading their email onto their computers.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh.
And they weren't using web-based email. And so the problem was the spam was actually coming into their machine. And so if you could, it was doubly annoying.
Yeah, you were wasting bandwidth on it.
Yeah, you were wasting bandwidth and time and maybe even pay per second internet access or whatever. And so it was a bigger problem. It's still there. If you go in your spam folder, I mean, mine in Gmail is absolutely full of stuff, but it's all getting filtered out. So it's sort of irrelevant. So,
where spam's not getting filtered out for me now? My Twitter DMs or my X DMs.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but it is the one area where I find spam just pernicious and annoying in a way that I've never experienced. Like I have to keep my DMs open because I'm a journalist and sometimes I get tips, but I probably get like 20 to 30 spam DMs a day.
Really? I don't want to say anything, but I don't.
Nobody wants you, Jeff.
No, they don't. They don't.
Your DMs are not open, Jeff, are they?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, good for you because it's quite annoying.
Not only are my DMs not open, I haven't logged onto Twitter in more than a year. So
hey, that's healthy and wise.
So, John, what is on by the way, the website is Low Background Steel AI, right?
Yes.
What is on Low Background Steel AI?
Actually, there's a bunch of resources that we know are pre the Cambrian explosion. So there's like a dump. There's a dump of Wikipedia.
Oh, Wikipedia pre-AI.
Pre-AI, right? And there's stuff from the Internet Archive, of course, because they've got a bunch of stuff like, you can think about all of the media that was created before that. The Library of Congress has a photo archive. Project Gutenberg, it's got a lot of things.
Pictures of actual people as opposed to generated people.
Made up people.
Books actually written by humans. In fact, there's a problem in publishing these days. A number of authors are saying, please don't publish AI written books. We didn't use AI. We really didn't. But there's no way to verify this. So Project Gutenberg's that makes sense. That's a good place to go.
Yeah, Project Gutenberg. There's also the Arctic Code Vault that GitHub did. That was in 2020. That was every active repository on GitHub at that point. So it's stuff like that. And, this website is just a Tumblr. So anyone can submit. If someone's got, an idea, you can go to Tumblr and you can submit something.
Submit and reshare. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So we booked you because I wanted to talk about this, but also because I'm a fan and I just love talking to you. But this morning I saw there was a fairly big announcement from Cloudflare. Cloudflare is interesting. Does Cloudflare hate AI?
No, actually, we use it quite a lot. And if you look at Matthew Prince, the CEO, put out a blog post about this kind of stuff. It's not really about hating AI. In fact, we have a whole bunch of AI products, right? People can run things like Llama on our network. We've deployed GPUs everywhere. Now, what we were seeing was from some of our customers who are publishers, they were getting worried about a fundamental change in sort of the way in which the web has worked in a certain fashion, which is that for a long time you had this agreement in a way between search engines and everybody else that it was okay for a search engine to come to your website and make available information about your website, because fundamentally someone was going to click through and go to your website. And what you see with AI happening quite often is that there's no click happening. The website is scraped, and an answer is given to someone searching on a search engine using the content that was scraped, and there's no click. And that changes fundamentally the business model, if you like, of the web. Because the business model was, Google, you're allowed to make a lot of money from us. Bing, you're allowed to make a lot of money because you send us the clicks. And that's changed. And that's the concern that's come from big publishers.
And it's interesting because this kind of shift in the relationship between publishers and kind of crawlers or search engines started before the AI boom, in a way, with the advent of kind of Google's knowledge panel. I remember there was a whole big to-do some years ago about Google's use, I think through the acquisition of Genius for lyrics, that I believe how Google was scraping lyrics from other lyric sites, it became a huge sticking point because companies were saying, hey, we've done actually the work putting out the lyrics here, and you're taking them and giving us no clicks or revenue whatsoever. But it seems like AI has really accelerated that. Yeah,
because you get this longer response, right, which is sort of bringing together maybe multiple sources, and depending on it's not just about Google, right? There's many different examples of this with AI companies that are taking in content and giving you a response, and some of them are good at linking back to the original content, and some of them are not so good. So that the idea was, from Cloudflare's perspective, is because we sit in the middle between the visitor, whether it's a human or a crawler, and the person putting something online. There's an opportunity to say, what sort of control do you want to have? And we've done that for quite a while, actually. So one of the things we did was there's a thing called robots.txt, right, which is meant to tell robots, i.e. crawlers, how to behave. Some crawlers don't follow that. They will ignore it. And so we're actually able to enforce it. So we'll say, oh, wait a minute, we told you not to crawl that. Actually, we're going to block that. We're going to stop you from doing it. And so
it's historically difficult to do. I remember Steve Huffman, the CEO of Reddit, saying, we try to block. They actually ended up making a deal to offer their content to OpenAI, but he said, we try to block this, and these guys go around robots.txt all the time.
So can I ask you a fundamental question there? Is it in any way illegal to ignore robots.txt, or is it purely a matter of honor?
I think it's a matter of honor. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so IANAL.
As they say.
As they say. I think the robots.txt is, it's an RFC, it's an agreement on, this is what you should not do, this is how you should behave. And again, part of that sort of tacit agreement, right? Oh, you won't behave like this if you don't want this thing crawled, and, will link back to you. You can someone will click through when they've come to something that you have crawled. So, Cloudflare just happens to be in a position where it's easy to help enforce robots.txt if you want. And then
how can you tell it's a crawler? There's a way to technically know that?
There's a lot of work. I mean, it depends what it is. Obviously, some crawlers just announce themselves.
Right.
Some crawlers have
with the user agent. They say,
or they publish an IP range. We'll crawl for this particular IP range. The larger, very legit crawlers will give you information about it. One of the things that Cloudflare,
but those are all the people who adhere to robots.txt, no doubt.
In general, yes. So then you're going to start looking for other signals, right? So one of the things that Cloudflare and other companies have had to do for a long time is figure out, is something a bot or not? Because some people want to block it or whatever.
Often when you get that checkbox that says, are you a human? That's coming through Cloudflare.
The thing called Turnstile that Cloudflare created, which is doing that. And what that's doing is actually looking at your browser and trying to determine if you are actually human. Are you behaving like a human? Is your browser lying about what it is? Because, it's amazing, actually, when I was working on DDoS mitigation at Cloudflare, how many HTTP DDoS requests came from IE6. Now, IE6
hasn't been around in a long time.
Hasn't been around in a long time. What it was the people doing the DDoS were just copying and pasting the same piece of code all over the place. And it was one of these things where it was like, I don't think we're getting 1,000 requests per second to this website from IE6. So that's definitely bad behavior. So you're looking for anomalies like that. And there are whole departments that do that. And then the other thing is, at the scale that Cloudflare operates at, you have a lot of data about what normal behavior looks like on the internet. So you can use AI, machine learning, to make a determination of, if this behavior looks like it's correct.
So there's a tab on your Cloudflare dashboard that has AI. It says manage AI crawlers, and there's an AI audit, and there's a tab, and you can say, hey, I don't want these guys. I don't want these guys. So this is better than robots.txt because you're actually looking for misbehaving.
Yes, correct. We can say, oh, this bot is doing something which is, misbehaving in this way, and so make it go away from me or block it. And ultimately, what Cloudflare announced was use the HTTP 402 error code, which is payment required is 402.
Ooh, I like that one.
Is to say to a caller, yeah, I'll give you the content and here's the price.
So it's almost blockchain-y.
No. If you say blockchain, I have to leave.
The call is
I see the hives
actually,
breaking
guys.
So this is called this is something you announced yesterday, the pay per crawl feature.
Yes.
Now it's not available yet to everyone. It's a closed experiment, closed beta.
It is right now. There's a whole bunch of big publishers who signed up for it right from the beginning. Condé Nast, Time, etc., who have joined in this process. And to be clear, AI companies who also signed up and said, yes, we want to participate in this way. We want there to be clarity about what's allowed and what's not.
Is there a separate negotiation? So Condé Nast says we're going to charge you $10 for every megabyte, and you say that's ridiculous. No, we go and negotiate a separate deal with Condé Nast. I can then inform you that I'm okay.
You should ask the current CTO of Cloudflare how that works.
did he think of that?
But yeah, I mean, absolutely. Obviously, people can. I mean, Reddit is one of the people who said they were happy about what Cloudflare was doing there in the press release, and obviously Reddit also has signed deals with other people. So clearly, we're not going to usurp deals they have or whatever.
So if I'm nasty AI company,
yeah,
and I'm Cluely, guessing they would do this, and and I say, screw your deals, I'm going to find my way around.
Yeah.
You come in and just say, if we catch you, we're going to stop you.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, that's what Cloudflare's bot management does in general, right? If you say, I don't want this bot on my website, it's our job to figure out, okay, this behavior is actually that particular bot doing this kind of thing.
How does this? Do you know how this varies from what Creative Commons also announced at the same time of a new kind of structure for identifying your conditions for crawling?
I don't know. There you go.
Okay.
As I say, you need to get Dane Connect, the new CTO of Cloudflare, on.
So this came out just hardly an all ago. So it was interesting that both came out about the same time. Yeah. So there's a big effort to do this. I used Gemini 2.5 Pro for some research just to see what it could do because I'm on an AI show, so I should do that. And I was shocked at the low quality of the sites it had available. All it has is our damned web. And we need to be able to feed, if we're going to use AI, and we need to be able to feed it with better sites and figure out how the hell to manage that. So,
I know Matthew Prince has talked about creating an ecosystem of micropayments, because really what you're going to face is beyond, because it's going beyond just having OpenAI crawl your page. Once we get to this agentic world of MCP, everybody and their brother, you and I and Paris and everybody listening to the show will have their own agents.
We're crawlers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
to a certain extent.
Any paper crawl system is going to have to involve some sort of micropayment system as well. I know Matthew's talked about even issuing a stable coin.
And of course, part of it is around the intent, right? So part of it is, I'm crawling your thing. Why am I doing it? And one of it is, okay, I want to build a model which I'm going to present search results, and you're not going to get a click. That's one use. Another one is what you're talking about, Leo, which is an agent. I go out and find, do some research for me. That's very different. And so there is actually built into what Cloudflare described the ability to say what the purpose is of the crawling event. So
yeah, you can. I'm looking at the AI crawler paper crawl documentation. You can take specific actions.
Yeah.
You can charge for it. You can block access. You could say, oh, no, you're all right if you're going to use it this way. This is all very new. So,
yes.
yeah.
So AI audit has been around for a while because you were able to go into your Cloudflare dashboard and say which crawlers are hitting
Who's looking
my
at me?
machine,
Yeah.
doing it. I want to stop that particular one or whatever. Who's violating robots.txt or whatever. So, yeah, these are, this is I think an attempt to change the way in which the internet has been operating a bit, because what's happened is what was happening before, which was there was this fundamental agreement between everybody, which is yes, search engines, crawl my website, take my content, because you'll then send me a click later on, hopefully.
Is there another alternative in that I think the Wikimedia Foundation has set up a separate repository. If you want our stuff, go here, get it there. Don't bug our regular servers. And there's also Common Crawl doing what they do. Are there other mechanisms to make data available in a less intrusive way to the companies that exist?
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by intrusive. If you're talking about the load on the website, that's one of the things that, some people are concerned about, all these crawlers coming in. So yeah, you could go, as I think what you're describing, I'm not familiar with what Wikipedia has done, but if they're saying, hey, here's an endpoint,
yes,
go over here, then obviously that's one alternative, because they may want to make the content available in that way. Nothing in this precludes somebody making, their own agreements with people. It's more a question of saying, there is real concern amongst publishers about my content is being sort of taken by people who then don't give back in the sense of a click-through.
I mean, this is what Cloudflare has done all along, is provide services, much-needed services. And in a way, this is kind of the story of your career too, John, since you started with fighting spam. The web started as this open, wonderful place where everybody was equals and nobody was taking advantage, or the theory was nobody was going to take advantage of anybody else, but humans quickly made that the tragedy of the commons. And we had to come up with kind of rules. And I think this is a very sensible way of both empowering AI, but making people comfortable with the way AI is being used. Are you disappointed that the web is not the open and free place that it promised initially?
I don't know. I think it is pretty open, I mean, we are able to communicate. I can go to lots and lots of places, lots of websites, get lots. I mean, it's pretty amazing, right? It's not perhaps quite as open as the, set up some Perl script on a thing and just hack the website live, as we used to do a long, long time ago. But I think that, the thing that Cloudflare really realized very early on was that the internet provided a whole bunch of services, and fundamentally in its design, which were pretty open, HTTP and then TCP, etc., and very, very collaborative. And in fact, its great success in a way was that it didn't have a lot of constraints built in. If you go and read the original RFCs, there's almost no mention of security. In fact, there is in the original IP RFC, there is actually in an IP packet the ability to say its classification level, like it's secret or top secret, and which department it came from. So this is a top secret packet from the Department of Defense. There's nothing in TCP. There's nothing in most of these things have no security. The HTTP, Tim Berners-Lee is security isn't part of this. And my theory on all this is that actually made the web successful and the internet successful.
I agree.
Had you built in all security, if you go right back to when they were writing those RFCs, who could do cryptography? A small number of governments, IBM, that was about it. It would have killed the internet to try and add encryption. So what happened was the internet exploded by having all this freedom. Networks could be created. I'm talking to you from a network here in Portugal. These could just hook up, and yes, we've agreed on these kind of loose coupled stuff. But then, of course, that left open room for problems, right? Spam, which we talked about, and then, DDoS attacks. All this. So Cloudflare's kind of thing was, well, there's probably going to need to be something, and it's not one company, it's many companies that will help mitigate some of these problems without fundamentally breaking the internet. Because what we didn't want to do is say, oh, you better design a new internet with all this stuff built in. We said, no, we'll fix this as a service. And that's why the company ended up with so many customers.
In fact, that's, as long as we've got you on, it's always a question that comes up is, why does Cloudflare, the value Cloudflare offers for just anybody like me who wants to set up a web page or or block DDoS attacks at no cost is amazing. And it's always a question, and people say, well, why is Cloudflare giving all of this stuff away?
Well,
why?
There's all sorts of reasons, actually. So one of the reasons why we gave a lot of stuff away free and have continued to do so is that enabled us to get scale. And once you get scale, everything costs less. So one of the big costs for Cloudflare in the beginning was bandwidth. We had to buy bandwidth, right, from the transit providers, and we had to all over the world. And how do you get it to be cheap? Well, if you can get scale, you have a lot of traffic on your network. You can go to ISPs around the world and say, you know how you receive 20 gigabits per second from Cloudflare or whatever? Why don't we work together? We'll make a direct connection, which will be free. That will means you'll pay less ISP because they're paying as well, right? They're paying to get onto the internet. And so what happened was that reduced the cost per megabit per second of what Cloudflare had. So just from a financial perspective, it made total sense to get scale as much as you could, because then you can sell. Obviously, we're selling services to people. Lots of people pay us, and lots of very big companies pay us a lot of money. So that was one area. You then get a huge number of people who like the product and tell you what's wrong with it. It's an incredible QA mechanism. It's an incredible recruiting mechanism because people try the product, and many of Cloudflare's largest customers actually started with a free thing. They put their blog on it, and then eventually, in fact, our very largest customer does exactly that. So there's all sorts of things. And actually, if you ever really want to dig into this, Cloudflare's S1, the document we went public, describes why free. And there is a blog post, actually, Leo, which you can probably find, which is called Cloudflare's Commitment to Free. And that talks about why this made sense for us. So this freemium thing really, really worked. And I think also fundamentally the business model of the older CDNs was very different to what Cloudflare decided to do. They were delivering video mostly, and it was hideously expensive to do. And when in the beginning we're like, we're just not going to do that. We're going to deliver a website. So it turns out to be a lot cheaper. And then we optimized everything. I mean, all the servers, everything is incredibly highly optimized to run an incredible high efficiency. So
Wait a second. I got to ask something.
Yeah.
As a blogger, I got to ask this. Something started as a blog and now is a gigantic company and your largest customer?
No, that's not right.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
That'd be too easy.
Break your heart. That would break your heart.
You did. You have.
It was the CTO of that company. It's a very, very famous company. Had a personal blog. Put the personal blog on Cloudflare. Said, I should take this to work. Took it to work, and then it became a huge customer.
I'll tell you, Jeff, it's me.
Exactly. It's Twitter, actually. It is actually.
Yeah.
I think
Huge
Cloudflare
customer.
Pages is amazing. I think everything Cloudflare does is amazing. This is the blog post reaffirming our commitment to free, just from last year, not even very long ago.
Yes, it was just to talk about it because this question comes up all the time because people are like, they must be secretly selling data to the I don't know.
It can't be this good.
The things you do, like what 1.1.1.1. I mean, there's so many things Cloudflare does that are such huge benefit to the internet. I think I'm just very grateful. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, John. His website is a masterwork in simplicity.
The function keys do work as well. You can actually hear F1, although I ought to change
I love that you got the function keys working.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. jgc.org.
Makes Craigslist look rococo.
And I will recommend maybe for your trip, Paris,
Here it is.
the Geek
I have a copy
Atlas.
right here.
Because you've got to go to all the
Actually.
places. This is the place where all the stuff was invented, the technologies began. I imagine you have Bletchley Park in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if Tatooine made it to the list, but
It did not. It is a place worth seeing. So
really,
it hasn't taken it.
I'm glad that O'Reilly's kept it in print because it really. I mean, the good thing about these is they're eternal, right? They're
Many of I mean, there's probably a couple out of 128 probably aren't quite as accessible. But yes, absolutely. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
John, such a pleasure to see you again and talk to you. I hope it's
education.
Not another 14 years before we get together.
We should probably try and we'll both be getting a bit elderly at that point.
So now you're semi-retired, right? What is your plan? What would you like to do?
That's a good question. I have a list it's quite an ambitious list. I made this list of like, here's some things I'd like to do. And I don't dare tell most of the people things that are on it. But the thing that there's a bunch of retro computing stuff, but the thing that I have spent the last, I'd say 20 years on and off thinking about is outside the CIA headquarters, there's a sculpture called Kryptos.
Oh, yes.
And the fourth part has never been broken.
Yes.
And I have over 20 years fiddled with it over and over again. So I was like, on my list of to-dos is break the unbroken last part of Kryptos.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be a cool thing to accomplish casually.
Item 1 to do.
I think that's excellent.
So I've spent quite a bit of time. I have ideas there, but I if I break it, I'd be slightly surprised at myself. So, although I did break the South African thing, which was really interesting. Do you know about that?
No.
So it turns out that the ANC, during the period when there was apartheid, needed a secure communication system.
Oh, I remember reading about this. Tell us, yes.
And so a couple of folks, in particular one guy, built using 8-bit computers a one-time pad system for this thing called Vula, which was basically getting the ANC activists back into South Africa. They needed secure communications. It used old modems, acoustic couplers. It used floppy disks smuggled into South Africa by a flight attendant to keep the keys on. And I'd read about this and I was super interested in it because I remember really well. Actually, when I was a student in the UK, the apartheid movement was the big issue of the day. And I was like, I wonder if anyone ever released the code of that. That would be really interesting to see. It's written in Power Basic in the in the 80s, 90s. And nobody couldn't find it. And so I was like, what if I can find the guy who wrote it? So I found him in South Africa and emailed him and said, hey, have you ever thought about releasing the code? And he replies to me and he says, I have the code. When I left the UK in 1991, I zipped it up and I forgot the password. And he's like, I've spent 30 years trying to remember the password. And I was like, would you send me the zip file? And so he sent me the zip file and I was like, this is such an old version of zip that there is a known plain text.
It was insecure.
And
yeah.
I used it and reverse engineered it and then got all the code and he just emailed him back and I was like, hey, I broke it. And he was like, I cannot tell you how happy I am. It's been like 30 years of trying to remember the password.
Leo has some Bitcoin he might want some help with.
Oh, I could help. I could. There's something in it for you, John, if you can help me crack that. No, unfortunately, I don't think it was.
Sorry, he said we're not allowed to mention Bitcoin.
Oh, that's right.
I did say blockchain, but yes.
I can't wait to see what you come up with next. Here we are in, as you write it, 19125.
Yes,
I just noticed that.
Do you know what? A very large number of people write to me and say, there's a mistake on your website. And actually, I had to change it so that if you click on 19125, it takes you to the Wikipedia page about the Y2K problem because people just have forgotten it. So
I literally think
beautiful.
someone in our chat seconds ago, minutes before you said that exact. They're like, I think there's an error in his copyright.
All the time. It's like, it's just
I knew immediately it was a joke. I like
it. It depends how old you are. If you lived through the year 2000, then you're like, oh yeah.
We were Tech TV was when Tech TV was on, and we were on call that night in case the whole world fell apart. We were going to go live and cover it. Nothing.
What were you going to do if the whole world fell apart?
We're screwed.
We'll cover it. Well, you can't use the ATM machines. You can't get any money. The planes are falling out of the sky. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah, it turns out nothing.
It's so news.
But probably because a lot of COBOL programmers got taken out of retirement to fix a lot of code.
Well, I mean, in the little company I was working for, I was the Y2K coordinator, and it was just the most tedious job ever. We had to go through every piece of software and contact the software people and say, are you Y2K compliant? And I had this massive thing where I was checking it off, and it was like...
If you hadn't done what you did, would there have been any harm?
No, absolutely not. Actually, I think there would have been nothing. I think it was,
You'd have websites for 19,125.
yeah, it'd just be like whatever, you know. It just would have been very minor. There were some really minor things happened with Y2K, but they were not. The thing was, there were some quite famous people in computer science who were like doomsaying about it. Like trains were going to come off the tracks. And,
Just like AI.
Well, get ready because the Unix epic ends in 2038.
Yes, 2038. Yes. I will have.
That may
I
be
think
more
we'll all be
serious.
ready for world collapse then.
That might be more serious. And I bet you we'll be bringing you out of retirement, John Graham-Cumming, just to solve that problem.
No, not the 32-bit rollover, please.
John, such a pleasure.
Thank you.
I love everything you
Absolutely.
do. Everybody should go to your website. It's just a treasure trove of fascinating things that you just want to click and say, what is ambient bus times? Well, it's a little...
It's a stupid thing I made when I lived in London, which was a model bus that told me when the bus was coming.
What's great is it was hacked from an old Linksys router, which is
I
even,
did, yes.
even
Yes,
better.
I modified the link. Yeah, there was yes. There are many strange things on my website.
It's
The thing
full
I
of...
think people
What
might
is
really
this?
love
2 stop bits looks like Hacker News. Is that
yes,
something?
but it's only retro computing.
Hacker News for retro computing.
Yeah, retro computing and retro gaming.
I like
made it.
that.
So yes,
I
that's
like
what-
that.
That's what 2 stop bits is. Yeah.
Very nice. All of it at jgc.org. Thank you,
There you
John.
go.
Really appreciate your time
Cheers, Leo.
and all the great work you do.
Thank
you. Take care.
See ya. Bye bye.
Hey, it's Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little clip from our programming at twit.tv. For more, visit our website, twit.tv, or subscribe in your favorite podcast client. There's also a link somewhere down there.